Welcome to the Open House podcast where women talk real estate. I'm Kristina Moderis.
And I'm Steph Douglas. Hi.
Hi. How are you doing?
Good.
Before we introduce who we're talking to today, I have an ask, please. We don't ask a lot, I feel like, typically, because we forget. But but if you all are listeners of our podcast and have never reviewed us, can you please review us? We would really appreciate it. It really helps us out. And also thank you so much for everyone who refers your friends to us. Like, you don't know, like, we are a small business, like a very small business, and every referral really helps us.
Yes.
And we know who you are. Like, we know who are our biggest fans and who are sending us people, and we really appreciate you. And we're working on systems of like celebrating you more, because it's like you guys are making our business thrive, so thank you so much.
That's such a good way to put it. It's just we have you to thank for like all of this, and it's so amazing. Even if you send someone this episode or any podcast episode, it's like just making people aware that we're here and we're trying to spread this message. It's so nice. I love it.
It helps us.
And reviews, yeah, it's another step of just like getting us out there, making people aware. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Who are we talking to today, Steph?
We're talking to my friend Sam, and he has this really cool company called StayTinyTX, and we get into, I mean, full disclosure, we did just talk to him, but it's like it was such a good conversation. I'm excited for people to hear it. He has, I mean, it's a great model for a company as far as like tiny homes go. So many people are interested in adding some income to their property, but also adding a space for their family, or adding an office, or adding some extra space in their yard. And he is providing a really cool opportunity for people that with some extra space.
Yeah, it's definitely a easier way to get into like having a tiny house in your backyard, supplementing your mortgage. So I'm so excited for you all to listen to this.
Yes. Okay. Let's get into it.
Okay.
Okay. So we're here with Sam Gervase. So excited to talk to you. Sam, can you give us like a little intro about who you are, what you do day to day, and your company?
For sure. So my name's Sam Gervase. I'm originally from Iowa, so Midwest guy. I went to school out in Boston, and then somehow ended up here in Austin, Texas back in 2017. So it's been long enough now that I feel like this is home, and I like have made this where I want to be my future home. But still kind of all the little things to continue to explore about Austin. I love living here. I still work for a community health nonprofit called StayTinyTX during the day. So I do still have a day job, and then this is my side hustle. That's not so much a side hustle anymore, but then have gotten into the tiny home business since 2020.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I feel like I've heard a little bit from Steph about what you do, but I'm going into this blind. Like, I don't really know much, so this will be
I know. I told him yesterday, I was like, Kristina doesn't know any of this, so this is not going to be like these are not fake questions.
No.
These will be real.
I feel like that's the best time.
Truly.
That's like the most organic, because it's like the listener doesn't know much, so I feel like it's the perfect like starting point for the real authentic conversation.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
actually, I'm interested. I don't even know, how did you and Steph like find each other? And I guess because you're working right now with, wait, do you already have the tiny house up, Steph?
Oh man, it's so close. We are so
We're
close,
really
right?
close.
2 weeks.
Yeah, the interior's almost done. The electrical got finished yesterday. So on Steph's tiny home that we're currently building for her, we have like 1 week left of like like the punch list, and then it's move-in time. So that's rolling up the sleeves, cleaning, and all the furnishings.
Okay, so how did you guys meet? And then, or maybe what are you doing?
Let's start there. What is your company?
StayTinyTX. Yep. So we officially incorporated back in 2021. So that's when we became a limited liability partnership. So my partner is my brother Jake. So we're 50-50 partners. He actually plays football in the NFL for his day job per se. So I don't really know if I'd call that a job. He gets to play a game for a living, so
Just
that's a pretty sweet,
casual day job.
pretty sweet gig. But
Yeah.
just an Iowa boy dreaming to play on the big field. But yeah, so he's my business partner. He's actually it works out pretty well because he's around in Austin about half the year, and then the other half the year he's not. So we do tend to grow more during the time that he's here, just given the extra capacity. But yeah, so that all kind of started back in 2020 during COVID. I had some extra capacity. I still had a day job at a different space, but really I've always thought about building an ADU or a tiny home in my backyard. I've followed like schoolies on Facebook for a while, and like had a
Yeah.
few other watch the Tiny Home Nation, which the host kind of bothered me in that show, so I didn't finish it. But I was always very interested in that fact of like, hey, I like to live communally. I like to have shared space. Like I I like used to mow lawns growing up, so I feel like slowly but surely my backyard's become a little sanctuary. So we have like a smart bird feeder. We have a hot tub. We've kind of tried to make it a bit more of an experience. We actually even have bees. So I just had my first honey harvest. So you know, I'll have to give you guys a little sampling, but it is delectable. Um, but so yeah, so a bit of a tangent there, but I started building the tiny home in 2020, and believe it or not, Kristina, I actually owe a shout out to Steph on this because I had kind of heard about her, been, we'll say, almost inspired by our friend Allegra. So I'm sure maybe you guys have talked to Allegra at some point, or she's in you know, the Boss Bitch Girls of Austin group. Um, but she had just finished building one, and that's kind of how I was inspired to take the plunge, we'll say.
Yeah. And Allegra and I built ours together, like a tandem. We use the same people, we use the same materials, we use the same plans. And then you didn't use those plans. You kind of like figured out your own
So the first
blueprints per
the
se.
first one, so my tiny home, the layout is very similar to yours. I just what I did
Okay.
was I added windows, so I had just a little bit more natural light, and I think I went like my general rule with like for finishes was like cost plus 20%, right? So like not the cheapest option, but still kind of in that budget range. So I would say like overall
Yeah.
the layout is pretty similar between the two tiny homes.
Yeah. And you're the model for your company. So you built one for yourself first, and then you came up with this model that I think is so genius and like to a lot of people seems too good to be true. Can you go into that?
Yeah, so what's unique about what we're doing, and it's not the concept itself is not particularly revolutionary. It's done actually quite a bit more in commercial leasing than like residential construction. But essentially, what we do is we finance, we build, and then we manage the tiny home as a short-term rental in other people's backyards, right? So the homeowner gets a percentage of that net rental income, as think of that as rent. So they are effectively the landlord and we're the tenant. It's structured as a ground lease. So basically, like we're renting the dirt. They actually don't even own the tiny home, especially up front. But they do have the right to purchase the tiny home down the line. Just a way for them to kind of they're building equity. Let's say they save that $800 to $1,200 every month that they're getting from cash flow from us, and let's say they put that in a separate bank account. Come 3 to 5 years, then they can use those funds to um, to essentially to buy the tiny home. We originally had thought about like kind of having that we would keep money in reserve for them to do that, so more of like a true like almost a true rent to own. But we're not a bank; we can't hold money in escrow, so that option was scratch, but essentially the onus of the savings is on that homeowner. So the ground lease is really the foundational legal contract that makes this possible, that mitigates our risk while still at the same time like giving them like basically passive income and a turnkey solution.
A big barrier to like adding things, because we talk to people all the time who are like, I'd love to have something in my backyard, and not only just for renting out, but like
Mm-hmm.
for family staying or for an office space. And a big barrier is, like you said, Kristina, time, um like contractors, the know-how, but also the cost. And so like this model, which is not your only model, but this model is cool because you cover the cost and then you lease the land. And yeah, and if there's any issues that arise, you can just pull it off of the land, which is it's really cool, and it's versatile, and it's like this is a super flexible way to potentially get some extra income.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And a lot of our
but
clients listening who bought like a few years ago, like I'm just thinking of one of our clients who bought in Georgian Acres, who had that like huge lot, and I was like, she could have
yes,
like had a couple of those on there, and I mean maybe she still can, but yeah, it's like
I know there's big lots places in central
Mm-hmm.
Austin even. Um, and and I think yeah, part of the like the hurdle is definitely the city and permitting, but I think it's so specific per lot, and it's so specific per, so that's something that, like, if you do reach out to Sam's company, he'll talk to you specifically and individually, but
and and
but otherwise,
and
like,
I've
how
been through
go
that.
ahead,
Like I
Sam.
can just honestly say, like for the whole permitting process, it's not worth figuring it out yourself for one tiny home, like our one
Yeah.
ADU. So like
That's a
I like,
great
and again,
point.
like that's the expertise that we bring is that we've now been through it a handful of times and like have it mostly figured out. There's still like one inspector could be a little bit more particular than the average.
oh, it's crazy. Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
different. It's like there's not a consistency in their systems. It's
Yep.
like if they're having a bad day that day, or like if they're nice or not. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
That's actually
crazy.
such a good point. Like, it isn't worth
Yep.
figuring out yourself. Like, it seems just like you go through it. There's delays. There's whatever it is. So that's a good point, Sam. Like, getting your expertise in.
Like you can't find good subcontractors in Austin right now. It's like really difficult. Like we made like probably like 15 calls on each different, like your electric, your plumbing, your HVAC. And I feel like at this point we now have like a good sub that we can trust and rely on. But again, like starting out from scratch, like because there's so much big construction going on right now, like that are soaking up a lot of that like subcontractor labor, like as a single homeowner, the subcontractor doesn't want to work with you because you don't know what you're doing. And the other thing too is like they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. And like to give you a very practical example, like one of our tiny homes, which is pretty common for ADUs, is we needed a septic pump to get the septic, back towards the main house because, you don't have the pitch or like the gravity just for like natural to not have a pump. And like the first bid on the septic pump was $9,000, and we had a friend who's in plumbing. He's like, that's ridiculous. Like, and we got him. We did end up working with him at. He charged us $3,800. So like literally, he came down more than 50% on the pump, and that's just the kind of thing again where if you don't know what you're doing, you're actually going to have more headaches and you're going to end up paying for it anyways.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
very good point. Um, I have a question about like working. So, if someone wanted to work with you, what does that kind of process look like? Like, what's the first step? They would reach out, and then what?
Yep. So our website's StayTinyTX.com. And so on our website we have, the overview kind of our general business model. And after reviewing that, if it is something that sounds of interest to you, we have a lead form there. So on the lead form, you'll submit your contact information, your address, and then from there, I'll reach out and we'll have that kind of initial discovery conversation of, what are you looking for? what part of town are you in? What's based off of those factors? Like, is there that opportunity for us to effectively provide that full financing? And if not, then again, like that, we can still move forward and just acting more as that build partner. And even on the back end, we still are offering that property management side as well. I will say I have no desire to get into true property management. Like, this is a one-off that, like, for people that we actually build with.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wait, so because I think you're working with my friend Kara too,
Mm-hmm.
with a tiny house, and so I forgot I was talking with her about this too. Uh, so you, what is your like? Are you trying? So you're not trying to get into property management, but you are like building these out, and then how does that work though? With like you're renting it out, right? Like you guys are renting it out, and you're kind of
So to
managing
clarify,
that,
we are in property
right?
management. Yeah, I think I just don't want to.
I was like,
I don't.
I was like, wait, I think that's like the job, right? Like,
I don't want to be I don't exclusively want to be a property manager, right? Like, so I
got it.
think, which is hilarious because Kara owns a property management business and we manage her tiny
Yeah.
home. Um, I will.
That is really
It's
funny.
so funny. I will note we do have a phenomenal rating as property managers. Like, look at Kara's rating. I think we're at, like, 4.9 stars. Um,
Amazing.
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 But I guess my point being there is like that it's that, like, that all-in package that we're essentially offering, right? And like the economics make sense for us on the ground lease structure as property managers when we are that bank and builder all together, right? That's what I think is what
Right.
we're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you just don't want to. People can't just hire you to manage their property that they already
Correct.
have at their
I'm not
house.
interested in that at this
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
No,
right.
it's
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard.
the compelling part about, I mean, now that we've talked about like the contractors and all of that, you're right, the barrier, there are many more barriers than just the cost, but like the one that you're building on my property, like we gave you a $2,500 deposit for utility hookups, and then that's all we are doing. Like literally you called me and been like, it's going great, and like here's an update, and and I haven't given any more money. I haven't had to manage the project. So it's really cool in that realm, but that's what I like about this is there is versatility in that that's one piece, and then you could also just be a contractor, like be a general contractor for someone else's build, and they could.
And the interesting too, the one thing I'd add there too that I think is kind of unique that we try to make it as simple as possible for the Steph, who is that homeowner. But like I think we also like want to design like the layout of the tiny home that maximizes the privacy for the existing structure, right? So like we on Steph's lot, which is it's a smaller lot, kind of in East Austin. We actually like we were able to put the windows in the places that made the most sense, like maximizing like that. Like we think about like what's the egress ingress of like how people are coming and leaving from the property. Where is that walkway? We did have to make some pivots due to some utility easements, but again, we did work through that together.
Did you, I don't know if you mentioned this, but what is the percentage that, like, wait, maybe I missed this. So
The percentage of like what the homeowner gets, right?
yeah. Yes. Did you guys
20,
mention this? I don't
25%. Yep.
remember.
So it's 25%
That's
of
great.
net rental income. So right now, our average tiny home is doing right around $3,300 a month. Takeaway cleaning, you're at 2,900. So basically, you're getting $750 for doing nothing. And I will note too that, like, again, the beauty of being in Austin is that we have, I mean, our homeowner payout in March and October because of the crazy seasons is like $1,500 a month. So I think, really that's cool to see that like there are like certain seasonality in Austin that we have a steady flow that pretty strongly support like that. You don't have like a super slow season, um, but we also we have those super awesome peak months as well.
But that's like truly passive income for your clients. So that's really nice. Like how many times are you communicating with them once the project is done, you know?
Ideally once a month. So yeah,
Yeah, like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Here's your money. Bye.
Yeah.
yeah, so we have
Wow.
That's
basically
amazing.
they get like a monthly recap with their payout. I track a number of key metrics every month because again, like our success is their success, which I think is the beautiful part of this is like I'm equally incentivized to maximize gross revenue because of the fact that like the percentage is an equal split, right? Um, so like I'm tracking our occupancy rates and our daily average rates and like what's our cleanliness rating, right? Are we making sure that we're keeping those ratings high? Again, just that like those little things that Steph I think has experienced this at least in certain ways with Pink Bubble of you know that's what matters. Like even the check-in instructions, like we have a guest right now that it's again so important, but you need like we have like step-by-step pictures and a damn video that we link out to on Google Drive of like this is exactly how you get and walk
Mm.
into the unit. So that stuff matters.
Did did you have experience with Airbnb before you got into this? Cuz like yeah, that's great. I feel like you have a lot of systems already.
Well, I think the beautiful part is that I had my own tiny home for almost 2 years before we started other tiny homes. So I had to like, I got to learn a lot of the little things kind of on my own property. And I was accessible
Yeah.
because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I forgot toilet paper. Well, here, you're out of toilet paper. Here's some damn toilet paper, right? Uh, um,
I think that's so
Yeah.
important that you like it's that you actually lived in one for that long so you know what all the issues are going to come up, you know how to with that and tackle it before they happen. So that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And the other thing with Airbnb, I know it's like, there's an ethical question about Airbnb in general, but like you're adding a place and then Airbnb that out, which is what we love at Open House too, is like we're doing our best to be creative about this and not taking up housing that otherwise could go to someone as a long-term rental. You're adding a place. And I think the future of the city is density. Like we need more density in Austin. And so you figuring out like how to make that work within the confines of the city and within the confines of everyone's lot is just, it's really cool and it's really
and I would
creative.
actually briefly talk about this offline a couple days ago, but like the golden era of Airbnb is gone because like for a number of factors. First of all, like there's a lot of bad hosts out there now, right? Like this isn't just like open up your guest house and like print money because people are trying that and doing it very poorly. And people are like, why would I stay in Airbnb when I can just book a hotel that's easier, right? I think we're kind of seeing that like bounce back to more traditional like hotel stays. So I think that's one thing too that is sometimes taken for granted. And you see these podcasts and YouTubers that are like, oh, like make passive income. Like it's passive income for the homeowner, but I can damn sure tell you for us, it's not passive income. Like especially if you're doing it well.
Right. Yeah, it's not an easy job, I would say. But if you have the right systems in place, it yeah, it can be a lot better, but I would say that like the golden age is over, but hopefully it'll come back because all these hosts are not going to make enough money and I think they're going to drop off and like I mean, I even choose hotels now over Airbnbs often if I can because I have had a lot of bad experiences on Airbnb. So, yeah, I hopefully like the good hosts will shine and stay.
I think there's a couple factors there. I think first of all, like interest rates are higher, which to me is a good thing because people can't just like this is a rabbit hole, but you have like crazy amounts of institutional investors buying up single family homes, right? And like so that hopefully with money no longer being free is gone, right? Or is at least drastically limited. Um, and then the fact that with like I said, you'll have some hosts throwing in the towel. So like again, if you're creating a good experience, if you have good reviews, like supply, I think you're right, supply of Airbnb like locations is going to drop. Like Airbnb is making a push to not have that happen, but I think if you're a host and you're like doing it kind of as a side hustle and you're like not actually making that much money and it's a pain in the butt and you're bad at it, you're not going to do it.
It's not worth it. And
Yeah.
also,
No.
I feel like your business seems to be promoting homeowners doing this on their own homes, right? Like someone would live in the home and then have space in their backyard or on whatever, and then so that could like lower their mortgage
So
on a house that they're living in.
So a fun fact is that like in the city of Austin, at least, you technically cannot have a short-term rental license without it being your primary residence. So you have to have a homesteaded property. Like, does that mean everyone's doing that? No. But you know, our model is to work with individuals where it is their primary residence.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we promote here. Like we are always promoting house hacking. And there's so many different ways to do it. One way is to have a tiny house in your backyard and rent it out to help
Yeah.
supplement your mortgage.
This is also something you could do even before you close, is like meet with your company and say like, okay, if I could potentially get 600 to 900 or whatever, conservatively, that would lower my mortgage quite a bit and make this feasible. So I don't know. It's a cool thing to think about, just like open up some possibilities. How many do you have?
Right now we're at 6. Yeah, so we have 6 currently up and running, and then we have kind of 4 more in the pipeline. And then we have a few other conversations going on, but I think we're trying to figure out like how do we want to grow and scale, and I think that we're at that kind of inflection point, I would say. And I'm excited to work through that. Again, I'm a finance guy by background, so to talk to like capital structure get me really excited. Um, but I think that we're in a really good spot because I think the demand is there. That like the market is like like the founder of Airbnb literally left Airbnb to start a ADU business like that, like which again is, I guess I was just want to say I was first, right? He definitely copied me, but I think that
the founder of
it's,
Airbnb
it's
copied
fine,
you for sure. And I mean, so you have your main job or your day job, but you're also in leadership in Austin in general. Like you've really taken a leadership role, and in doing this tiny home business and working with the city and working, trying to get policy changed for the better. Like how would you recommend that other people get involved in their community? I feel like people want to be involved, but they're not, because there's barriers to that. So what's your advice?
great question. Tough question. I think yeah, so I've been here now, like I said, for almost 6 years, and I feel like this is home, right? I think we want to like build our lives here, and you know, to me, it's always been important to like be part of that community in which we live. I think it's kind of a weird place to live because so many people are transient, where it's like, oh, like Austin's a great place. I'm going to come live here for a couple of years, and then like go back home or basically leave the area. So I think that's kind of actually where I'm struggling a little bit right now, is that a lot of my good friends are like in that transitional spot where they're like, all right, I guess I did my Austin chapter. Now I'm on to different things. Um, and I get that. I totally understand that. And I recognize that. But I think that like we live in a super amazing community in a tough state, to be honest. I mean, like, we don't have to get political, but there's a lot of things right now that are happening in Texas, whether it's women's rights or trans rights or like how people can live their lives, right? Their authentic selves. And I think actually I'm kind of having an internal battle right now with that personally. And I think that's something, I'm part of a leadership program called Leadership Boston. We actually just graduated actually yesterday. So the program is coming to an end. But the the thing that we talked a lot about is, you don't always have to go straight for like the systemic change, right? Like you can be a good neighbor and you can get involved like with a local youth sports team. There's a lot of little ways that you can impact and build that community like on that like micro scale, right? And I think to me that's super important is knowing your neighbors and like giving back to your community. Like that's something I think right now that as millennials we're kind of having a bit of an identity crisis with. But we can go deeper there, or we can also
Yeah.
leave that for
Well,
another podcast.
I feel like it feels hard when you get into those, like we were talking about. There are a lot of things going on in Texas, and it can seem overwhelming. And then you just like want to curl up and watch Netflix because you're like, that's not I can't do anything with that. But like we do teach, here at Open House Austin that like go say hi to your neighbors. Like when you close on your house, like know your community, go to your HOA, or not a HOA, your neighborhood association, like meetings. That every neighborhood has that, and those little things you can do actually can make an impact, and they'll make you feel good too. So yeah, I think you can, especially in Texas, all the things on the news, shootings and stuff, it can make you feel so overwhelmed where it's like, I can't do anything, so I'm just gonna like stay at home. But there are little things and lots of community organizations in Austin that you can, be a part of.
I heard
So yeah.
I like that. Yeah, the
I heard a fun
small
fact
things.
that there are 14,000 nonprofits in Austin right now. I heard that stat yesterday. Like that's a ridiculous amount of nonprofits. Like do something that you love to do. Like if you want to like coach baseball, great. If you want to like clean up a park with, some people, some lower income, like there's actually an organization called like Hungry Hill that they do like park cleanup, and it's all like, it's basically money for homeless folks or unhoused folks to earn money by picking up different neighborhood streets, etc. And like you can literally jump in. Like there's not, you don't have to like go through crazy volunteer, certifications like,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of organizations, like there's this organization called Girls Empowerment Network, and I used to volunteer where literally you just go into their office and like help them like do some paperwork stuff because they like don't have a lot of people to help. They're like, I just need to like answer all these letters that we've gotten from like moms and their daughters or something, or like we need to reach
Yeah.
out to these people to let them know we have an event, and like we don't have the bandwidth to do that. And I'm like, it was so easy. It was just like I just had to go there and like do some stuff, and it's just they need help.
Totally.
So you can do whatever.
Yeah.
If we're talented people, we
Yeah.
really are. Like a lot of our friends and the people we surround ourselves with, like bring a lot to the table and are also just smart people. We can figure it out, right?
Yeah. Totally. So we've talked about this offline too, Sam, quite a bit, but what's the future of Stay Tiny Texas? Like I love your idea. So tell
Absolutely.
everybody.
So, I mean, for me, I'm definitely like, I'm very impact driven, right? Like, I want to be part of the community in a way that like helps people and like is seeing like the change and like making Austin a better place than when I first moved here. And one thing that I think is possible here, and I'm kind of working through the actual like logistics of this, but with the fully permitted model and foundation, but still on a trailer base to give some flexibility for us as the business partner. I would love to start working with lower income like homeowners. So people that maybe like a retired janitor from Austin ISD who's lived in East Austin for 20 years and his property taxes have doubled and his just the cost of living has gone up, right? So like helping people like that either age in place or stay in the community of which they have known and given to and been part of for generations, helping them be part of that and stay part of that with passive income. So that's what I'm really excited about, is kind of pivoting more towards like a social impact approach where we are working with a specific type of population or homeowner, again recognizing that there's a certain niche there, but there's a lot of people in that scenario in East Austin that have a little extra space in their backyard, and maybe for one reason or another money's tight and are looking and don't want to leave where their family's been for years. So Christina, a good example too is the neighbor across the street from Kara. she's 76 and she was born in that house. Like that to me is mind blowing.
Right. I know it's I love that. That's a great idea, and I feel like since there are 14,000 organizations, I feel like partnering with one, like I'm sure you've already thought about this, but like there's so many like organizations to partner with who are already working with those people that can then you can be like, there's a housing aspect. We can also throw in this housing aspect to like what you guys are already working towards. Cause like I think that my friend just started a nonprofit called Read the Room, and I just seen her like going through all this paperwork and stuff. I'm like, it's so much. It's like they make you jump through so many hoops before you can just like start helping people. And I'm like, we all just just band together and try to like work together because like the government is making this really hard for us to do. So
The one thing I would add there too, just to make sure though, is that like the homeowner would be the lower income like family, right? And the we in this current state we would use the tiny home for as a short term rental. Um, I think I've explored a few other options that I can, if you want me to go down that rabbit hole, I can. But I think right now that to me feels like the best it's the straight arrow way of like having a direct impact while like still the economics still make sense for everyone.
no, it's
Right. And they would get a paycheck every month that could cover their property taxes, that could
Yeah.
cover their grocery bill or whatever. But that, I mean, and there's a lot of people who are in these quote unquote great locations now who are being pressured to move because they're like, well, I could get a lot of money for this, but then they have to go grow old or leave the house they were born in. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want that.
right. Yeah, I feel like the biggest barrier would probably be just like having the community trust that like that you're gonna like be supportive of them. I feel like there's a lot of things that yeah. So I think that will probably, in my opinion, I think that would be the biggest hurdle is like getting the trust of people. Cause I remember talking like me and Steph own a commercial building on Oak Springs, and like a few people who've lived in the neighborhood would used to come by. There was a coffee shop over there, and like and I just remember being like, yeah, there's like you could house hack, you could do this, you could like, and he was just looking at me like, okay, crazy person. Like I was just like preaching real estate, and he was like, okay, sounds
Well,
cool.
I mean, you're right though.
Like,
People like are gonna question like, you're gonna give me $800 a month for doing nothing. Like, what's the catch, right?
yes.
and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
landlords do this every single day across the country or across Austin,
Mhm.
and like they don't think twice about it. And I think there is very much like a financial literacy component to that. And I think that like that's why again you're so right, Christina. Like you would need trust. Like we need people who either have like established relationships with those individuals, or we'd have to figure out exactly how we reach those homeowners in like an authentic and like approachable way. So there's definitely some
Right.
work to be
Yeah.
done.
But well, I think that's an awesome like goal, and I'm excited to see it. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay, and then last thing, I know that people are probably wondering, um, if if they were to hire you to build a tiny home for them, in their backyard, and that was like you were the general contractor, what kind of budget would they need to have? I know that you can't say exact figures, obviously, but just like a range.
Yep. So there's a couple of options. So the first option would be like if you're under 200 square feet and you are not in a floodplain and you don't plan on using that as a dwelling space officially, then you're exempt from a building permit, which makes things a lot easier. So let's say that's a home office, that's a home gym, that's a like unofficial mother-in-law suite that you're using for family and friends or happen to occasionally be renting out. That would be right now it's the range is about we're super transparent with our costs, so it's our cost plus a 30% general contractor's fee. So it's right now our most recent finished build was 60K, so 60K plus that 30%. So I'd be looking right around what would that be? Uh, one like 78K would be that kind of that estimated all in cost. if you are doing fully permitted as a building or as a building permit with, for a additional dwelling unit, that ADU, we're looking right around, it's basically not, it's not double, but it's anywhere from like 100 to like 140. And there's a lot of reasons there that it has everything to do with like what's the square footage, what's the type of foundation you need based off the type of soil you have, what is this how far is the structure from a utilities perspective to the main house. Do you have to upgrade your existing electrical panel, because a lot of houses in Austin only have 100 amps versus 200 amps. So I know 100 to 140 is a huge range, but the reality is like that's a huge range for a reason. So I think that like that's the short answer. And again, like you can get like a home equity line of credit to do something like this. Like I said, in certain target strike zones, we offer that full financing through StayTinyTX. And then lastly is that like, it is a potentially revenue generating asset, right? So something to think about is that, you know, knock on wood, first and foremost, you would recoup the value of that build upon sale of your house, but you also would have that cash flow like ongoing during that time period.
Yeah. That's amazing. I feel like, is anything else you think people would want to know? Or anything else that you think you should add, Sam?
About from a potential homeowner's perspective, or even just like a small business.
Yeah. Oh, I think probably people listening probably like either want to own a home or do already own a home. Like anything else that we're missing here?
I think the first thing would be that like having like an ADU tiny home Airbnb is not for everyone, right? Like, I I like I practice what I preach, and I have a tiny home in my backyard, and like I love it. Like there was a woman, actually, this is so cute. This is not scripted, I swear. Um, there's a woman staying in my tiny home right now that, um I do have a dog, Quinn, who likes to like alert me when a tiny home person is coming or going. Um, so I walked out, and the tiny home guest was walking towards the main house. I was like, hey, like, how's your day been? Sorry for Quinn. She's just a little excited this morning. And to go, honestly, it's been kind of hard. Like her mom has cancer, and her dad has dementia, and like she's taking care of them, and she just basically seemed frazzled, right? And um, and I'm like, oh, well, I hope this day is great. I'm like, let me get you a little treat. And like, I just had my first harvest for my honey. Um, so with my honey harvest, I gave her I have like little 1 ounce samplers. So I gave her a little honey just to like sweeten the day a little bit. And she was like just like so appreciative, and like to me, like that's what it's about. Like she's coming to Austin, she's not in a hotel. Like I want to like have like an actual experience for her. And like we do have tiny home options where like there's literally no interaction between the homeowner and the guest, given of like how we segment the yard. But like I think it is a sense of like you have to be more like at least generally communally minded, of like it's your backyard and you're going to share it, and like you can't be resentful of that. Otherwise, like you're not like the right partner for us, because like the reality, right, is like we are in partnership with the homeowner. And I feel like, for example, like working with Steph has been super great, where like things come up, right? And like we've like had some good conversation and dialogue where, we had to like go talk to the neighbor to see basically, was he the one that called us in the 311? And turns out he was like, oh great, like, we actually prefer this. Like the one balcony will like it'll be more soundproof because of the tiny home structure. I'm like, surprised but perfect. So that would just be, I guess, my final thought there.
That's a great point. Like it truly, like, yeah, it's not for everyone, and people will be in your
Yeah.
backyard and in your space, and you signed up for that. So if
Yeah.
you're not trying to, like, I don't know, just be a friendly neighbor every once in a while, and like you don't have to go talk to them, but you know exactly, don't be resentful. I love that.
Yeah. And to your point, like they just want to have a good experience. And so if you're doing something or anything that's making them have a worse one, then yeah, you're probably not the right fit.
Yeah.
But and I like that you see it as a partnership. I think that's great. And your success is their success. It's like it just seems like such a win-win-win in all directions. And the land lease situation is not right for every single person, but it's just it's a cool model. So
yeah,
I'm really appreciative that you came on to talk to us.
Fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We'll have to do like a check-in in like a year, and at that point, maybe it was like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
we're now working with like tons of lower income homeowners, and like stay tuned.
Oh my gosh, love that. We would love to get involved in that also. If you ever need help or support, that's like a dream of ours as well. So I love that you're acting on it.
I know, and thank you for being a leader in our community. Seriously, it's really cool, and I loved your advice on that. So this was great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam.
I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.